Hey everyone, welcome to my garage. My name is AJ. Today I'm going to be reviewing and demoing the Ridgid 16 gauge finishing nailer and the paslode 16 gauge finishing nailer. If you're in the market for upgrading that pneumatic air nailer, I think either of the two will make a great choice and will go great in your toolbox. So let's just jump right to it. I'm going to start off with the Ridgid and tell you a little bit about it and a little story behind it. And one of the reasons why I'm making this video is because back in January 2016 I bought the gun because I needed to upgrade my pneumatic air nailer. I wanted to leave the compressor at home and the hose at home, so I needed something cordless. I install shutters for a living, or on the side for that matter. I ended up buying the Ridgid, and even after reading some of the reviews and some of the complaints, I still took my chance with it. Being that I was a Ridgid guy and I have a bunch of Ridgid tools, I ended up making the purchase. But long story short, even after I read the complaints and the reviews, I took it to the job site, and when I went to go shoot my first nail, I already had encountered my first problem. And some of the problems, people were saying that it was not able to penetrate the nail through the material and countersinking the nail. So I actually had the same problem everybody else was complaining about. The nail was sticking out about 1/8 of an inch, 1/16 of an inch, and I myself was having to tap it in, finishing it off with a nail setter, and making the job a little bit longer. So I ended up putting it away, finishing it up with my nailer, my old nailer. Drug out the hose and the compressor out. I ended up returning the Ridgid, writing a bad review on it, and I ended up making a purchase on the paslode. The paslode was recommended to me by one of my fellow installers that I also work with. He's had one for the last 5 years, and this is actually their newer version. When I made the switch, believe me, man, this gun right here, man, just blew my mind. It was a great gun. I should have made the purchase from the beginning in comparison to the Ridgid. So I'll talk about that a little bit in a second. Back to the Ridgid. So after I returned it, wrote the bad review, the product manager for the gun actually got a hold of me through my email after reading my review. Was very apologetic, and he ended up telling me that they were making some changes to it, and they're making some revisions on it. And he was very apologetic that it didn't meet my expectations, and he followed through, and he actually wanted to see that they met my satisfaction. So he ended up sending me another one, and thank you very much on that. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it to work and demo it for you guys, and see if the changes that they made actually they made some improvements on the gun, and we can notably see that. So let me just jump right into the specs, and I'll note some of the differences that I have with both guns, using them out in when I'm working out in the field or in the job site. The Ridgid right here is going to cost you about $269. It does not come with the battery, it does not come with the charger. You're going to have to buy that separately. The 4-amp battery, they run about $99 at the store at Home Depot, and then the charger is going to be $49. So you're looking at about $150 for the charger and battery, $269 for the gun itself. So out the door, you're looking at about $380, $390. And some of the other notable things are the fact that it's only battery operated. It does not use any fuel cells, which is really cool. People just get tired of having to go to the store and having to go buy fuel cells, or have some just laying around in their case or whatnot. And sometimes they might forget and have to go run around. So you avoid having to do that by just having a battery operated gun. So that's pretty cool about this one. One of the differences on both guns is that there is a big difference in weight. This bad boy right here with the 4-amp battery is going to weigh about it weighed about 8.6 pounds on the scale. So that's pretty heavy in comparison to the paslode. Another notable thing was that if you do decide to get the 2-amp battery, they rate that battery to be able to get about 1,450 nails on one charge. So do expect to maybe get a little bit less. Just depending on how many nails how thick the nail, or how thick the material you're shooting through, the size of the nail. But roughly you're going to get about 1,450 nails on a 2-amp battery, full charged. I'm running a 4-amp battery, and I'm expecting to get about 2,500, so double of the 1,400. Just being the safe, that I took off another 400. So about 2,500 total nails on one charge on a 4-amp battery, and that's just my assumption. I've never shot more than 500 nails on one job site. I install shutters, and I shoot about roughly 300 to 400 nails. But even then, if I want to take a quick little break, 30-minute break, I'll throw it on the charger real quick. That way I can get back to work and not worry about the battery dying. So those are the notable things on the Ridgid. I'll jump to the paslode real quick. The paslode, of course, costs $399, and it comes with a battery. It does not come with the fuel cells though, and it does come with a charger. So that's one thing to note. Another thing is that you'll notice that between both guns, this one is angled, this one's a straight nailer, and that's because this is actually recommended for installing crown molding, and I'll show you that in a second in the demo. One of the things is that yes, it is battery operating fuel cell, but the nails that it shoots are 3 1/4 inch nails up to 2.5. Like the Ridgid, I'm sorry, the Ridgid actually shoots 3 1/4 inch nails up to 2.5 inch nails, and the paslode actually shoots 1 1/4 to 2.5. So that was my mistake. So they both do shoot 2.5 inch nails. That's what I need when I go to install shutters. The longer the nail, the better. But this one actually shoots the smaller ones, the 3 1/4, and this one shoots the 1 1/4. One of the other differences is the weight, of course. The Ridgid was 8.6 pounds. The paslode only weighs 4.8 pounds, and that's with the battery and the fuel cell in it. So that's one of the notable things on it. The battery life on the paslode, they state you can shoot up to 6,000 nails on one charge, and it's only a 7.2 volt battery, and it's really tiny in comparison to the Ridgid. And it does come with the charger. The fuel cells, they roughly run about, for a 2-pack, about $15. They're really tiny, really don't weigh anything, and that's full, same size as the battery, and they do not weigh anything, so they don't actually compromise the weight of the gun itself. Really easy to install, real quick. So they run about $14 for a 2-pack, and each cell you can get about 1,000. You can shoot about 1,000 nails. So they state if you have gas and you have nails, you're good to go. So that's one thing that they know. And those are the couple notable differences on both guns that I see when I go to use them. So I'm going to go ahead and start off on the demo here. I'm going to start off with the Ridgid. Like I said, it's a little bit heavier in comparison to the paslode. When I was using it about 7 months ago, I was reading that people were having issues with penetrating the nail through the material. So I also read that people were putting a little bit of weight behind it. You really don't want to have to do that because you don't want to put any marks or put any indentations on the material, even though it does have a no mark tip or a no mark tip, to protect the face of the material you're working with. You really don't want to put any extra weight behind it, but I heard people were taking the tip off so they can get closer to the material, and the nail was able to penetrate through the material. So you really don't need to have to do all that. So hopefully with the revisions that they made, we won't have that problem. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started on this left side right here. I actually started playing with it earlier, so you see a bunch of holes in here. So as I'm putting it to the face of the material, I'll try not to put too much weight behind it, only to kind of hold this in place, and I'll start shooting. So the first shot was pretty good. It did penetrate through the material, through the stud, without any problem. However, there is a little recoil behind it. I can kind of feel it jump a little bit. You can't tell from the camera angle, but there's a little bit of recoil. And using the paslode for a long time, there really isn't a bunch of recoil. However, you'll notice or you'll hear the difference in power when I go to shoot this one. You can hear the power just behind it. It's also lighter, and that's something I noted. And one of the things is that when I'm installing shutters, I'm holding the shutter, the frame of the shutter, as I'm nailing it. So I really use only one hand. So being that the paslode is lighter, that definitely has a big advantage to it. So as I'm holding the shutter frame to the wall or on the windowsill, I'm using one hand to shoot the nails to the material. So the weight of the gun is obviously going to make a big difference, but I actually haven't encountered a problem yet with shooting any of the nails through the material. So the revisions that they made are actually pretty well in comparison to the one that I had purchased about 7 months ago. So that's a plus. So back to the demo over here. Earlier when I said that the angle on the gun does make a big notable difference. The paslode, of course, is angled, and when you're installing crown molding, you want to get a good angle. That way you can penetrate the nail through the stud that's on the wall, behind the wall. So, and one of the things that I noticed too is that the Nomar tip actually sits very flush to the crown molding on this groove part of the trim, or the crown molding, in comparison to the Ridgid. And also on the Ridgid, you can't actually get a good tip angle on it. What you have to do is turn the gun a little bit to get the nail through the material at a comfortable kind of angle. So the weight obviously is going to play a big part of it. You're going to get tired, but it does penetrate through the material, unlike the old version that they had out when they first came out with it. You know, it does pretty well. Now let's go down here to say you're putting some floorboard or some trim at the bottom. Just pretend this is the floor right here, tile or hardwood. One of the things is that because it's really bulky, say you want to get a nail really down here close to the groove of the trim, you really can't unless you angle it. But by angling it, you actually don't get a good contact point on the tip. So usually, what I would do is you know, kind of get the nail as high as possible or as low as possible, but you're still going to get, you're not going to get a good angle on it. So regardless of whether you're using this gun or this gun, you're not going to get a good angle. But the nice thing is you can turn the gun really easy on the paslode. On the Ridgid, being that it's heavy again, it's going to be a little bit harder to get a nice shot when you're selling really low, small trim. So the paslode actually wins on this one. However, one of the notable things, difference on both guns is that this one is actually, it has trigger action where you, depending on it actually hit another note and protruded out. One of the great things is that you can adjust the how it fires. So you can do a rapid fire where it's bump action, and I'm going to shoot the stud up here and I'll demo it. Sorry. Oh, did I have it? Actually, this is single fire, so I actually had it on multi-fire bump action. So let's go back to the bump action. So I got my hand on the trigger, and I'm going to bump it, and bump it again. So it actually, there's a cool bump fire mode on this one, and it actually penetrates pretty well with no problems. This one, of course, is in bump action, so it's one at a time. So that's one of the notable differences on both guns. This one's a single fire, trigger fire only. This one's got the trigger fire and bump fire both. So that's one of the two differences on both ones, on both guns. This one actually also has an LED light, so if you're working in the dark or in a dark place, like maybe you're in a closet or something with no light, the light comes in handy. You know, you can put the gun where you want it, and you can see where you're shooting. So that's pretty cool. So two of the biggest differences on both guns are obviously the size and the weight. But either or is a great gun, and they made some cool revisions on it that actually gets rid of that problem of the nail not sinking through the material. But if they can just work on the weight, I think it would be a great gun. So if you're in the market for upgrading your tools and you want something that's cordless, I think either two would make a great tool to have in your toolbox. So thanks for watching, and I hope you guys can make a decision based on my review and my demo here. You know, thanks for watching. All right.